Hello Sofa Squad and welcome back to the damn sofa. That's the sofa and that's my slim shady little sidekick, Mr. Roscoe. And my name's Paul. Now look, if you're seeing this video, you're probably watching it on one of my other channels. So make sure you're subscribed to this. Remember, I have 3 channels. I have the main channel, and I'll tell you all separately what we're gonna be doing and kind of changing things up here at the sofa. But I got the main channel, this one, and then my movie review channel. That's just like a fun channel that I'll put movies up that I've seen every now and then and whatnot, usually horror films. So just make sure you're subscribed to all 3 of them. Now today we're going to be talking about a case that literally has hit the headlines, whatever. What's interesting about this case is a lot of times, as you here at the squad know, when we follow these cases of missing people, missing children especially, I mean, a lot of times there's not like a happy ending, right? And so it's good when we see headlines like this of child found in good health. You know, now there are going to be some other things that we'll talk about when we get more into it. So this is something to rejoice in, right? Now the case that we're talking about, the young girl's name is Paislee Shultis. Now she was 4 years old when she was abducted, and she's 6 years old now. So in 2019, when Paislee was just 4 years old, her birth parents Kim Cooper and Kirk Shultis lost custody of her and her older sister. Now at the time of this recording, it's not known why they lost custody. Now when push came to shove in this, the authorities were taking the children. The parents decided to flee. Now obviously they took Paislee with them. Now remember, she had an older sister. Well, their older sister was in school that day, so they couldn't take her. So effectively they abandoned her, but now mind you, she was already, they had guardians and whatnot, and we'll get into that in a minute. But nonetheless, I thought it was interesting that they were like, okay, well, you know, if she's in school, she's gone, so we're just going to take Paislee and run. Now, where they would flee to was about 150 miles away to a town named Saugerties. Now, this is where the paternal grandfather lived, and they would move into that house and stay with him. Now, what's interesting is over the span of time or whatever, police did investigate, they did stop in. And we're going to go over very quickly what they had to say about that. Now, I'm quoting one of the officers when they say, a number of times we would go there and sometimes we were met with resistance, and at other times they'd say, oh no, you can come in and look around. There's nobody here, the child's not here. And our belief is that at times when we went into the residence, although we were given limited access, they were using this location to hide the child. Now, even one of the neighbors at the grandfather's house was like, no, they were totally normal people. The only thing that was weird was that we never saw children anywhere, right? And they would cite this, and I'm going to put a picture of it up here, this pretty huge like jungle gym kids play area thing that was in the back of the grandfather's, and they were like, you know, we've lived here for 12 years, we've never seen any kids use it. The only time we've seen kids use it was like a couple of summers ago when there was a birthday party for another one of the grandfather's granddaughters. Now on that, it made me totally wonder. I was like, okay, at this time was she living there? Because they made it sound like it was during this, you know, window of time. So that makes me think, oh my god, poor Paislee, was she like trapped in the house knowing this was going on outside? The whole 9 yards, whatever, because clearly the parents were keeping her sequestered away from everybody. We'll talk about that here in just a second. So outside of that, the neighbors were like, you know what, I mean, we just never saw children there. It was kind of spooky, but other than that, the people seemed totally normal. So I mean, nobody was really expecting or suspecting anything like this. So it does sound like Paislee had an actual bedroom there, and the detectives will say, you know what, there was a room there. On the wall it said Paislee. It looked like somebody had slept in there, somebody was using the room. Now the father and the grandfather would say things, you know, to account for this, for her actually having a clear room there. You know what, we set it up like that so that way if she's ever found, she'll have a room to come home to. So I find that very interesting. So basically what it sounds like what happened is if the police came around, the mother would take Paislee and would go to the hiding place, which is where she's found, and we're going to talk about that. And so the mother would hide out down there with her. Okay, so where she was found, obviously you saw the picture, it's not that good. She was found under a staircase. Now the staircase sounds like it was leading down to the basement. So what had happened is cops were tipped off. You know, they got this tip that must have been pretty good. I'd be very curious to know who tipped them off. It was like, look, she is in that house. They got a search warrant, because remember, they've already been coming around and looking. They get a search warrant, and I mean, literally, the articles I read called this cop Eagle Eye, and I'm like, Amen, brother. So he was looking around and he was like, there's something weird with the stairs, right? So he's looking at it and it sounds like a little piece of a blanket was sticking out. And so they're kind of like shining their lights in there. And so they eventually get something to start pulling the stairs back. And they're seeing like, you know, blankets in there. As they're pulling the stairs back, they see a little pair of feet, they said. And they would find Paislee and her mother in this little like room under the stairs. There was a bunch of blankets in there, but they were like soaking wet and cold. I mean, it sounds like what you would expect to be underneath like a gross basement, you know, downstairs or whatever. And so she was in there. Now, let's talk very quickly before we get into like, you know, the parents, all that kind of stuff. So, obviously there are huge issues and red flags to go off of this, right? The fact that the parents were okay with keeping their daughter literally just, you know, sequestered in this home. Now, at this point, we don't know how much she was being able to get out and that kind of thing. She wasn't going to school. It doesn't appear that she was, you know, doing any kind of homeschool. Obviously, no medical attention. You can't take somebody out who's a missing person to a doctor, especially a child, right? So, there was that going on. Now, it looks like a preliminary, like, you know, how is she doing? That kind of a health test came back fine. At the time of this recording, I'm not sure if they've taken her. I would assume they have, but I haven't read where she's gone through a full battery of tests, that kind of thing, dental, whatever needs to happen. I would hope so. At this time of the recording, she is back with her legal guardian. So, yeah, now the school thing, the emotional thing, all that kind of stuff, I'm just like, oh my God. What I personally think, because look at the timing of it. They did this in 2019, and then, you know, we know what 2020 was like, right? So this sounds like this is a very small town that they're in, right? Like very, very small. And so I just think that they probably were able to kind of play it off, you know, and just be sequestered away. I think we're going to see lots of situations like this, lots of things of, you know, people were hiding out while, you know, lockdowns were happening, all that kind of stuff and whatnot. And I'm not trying to say that Paislee was hiding out, but her parents were probably using this to their benefit. Now, one thing that was absolutely heartbreaking in this that just made it like, oh my God, was when the authorities were taking her to be reunited with her older sister and legal guardian, they passed by a McDonald's and Paislee was like, I haven't eaten there in forever, you know, really long time or whatever. And the cops turned around and got her a Happy Meal. I was like, oh my God, that's amen to the cops for finding her. Amen to the cops for doing that. I mean, the poor little thing. So that just told you right there, because my first thought was, were they not going out and at least getting her something? You know what I mean? Like trying to make like life somewhat normal for her, right? Because I mean, remember, these are her biological parents, right? But clearly there was a reason why they took her away. The fact that they found her hiding out under the thing with her mother and they had no problem sequestering her in a home for this long is, you know, an obvious red flag as to one of the reasons why they probably weren't meant to or suited to take care of children. Both of the Shultis were charged with 1 count each of felony of custodial interference in the first degree and misdemeanor endangering the welfare of a child. So the father and the grandfather have both been released on their own recognizance, which I just am a little shocked by, but whatever. And the mother, Cooper, she's still being held in Ulster County Jail. She has an outstanding family court warrant and she's being held on a $50,000 bail. So this is going to be very interesting to see where it goes. I personally think more charges will be on the way. They just haven't done that yet. They're going to probably keep investigating it or whatever and come back with some more charges and whatnot. So we're just going to have to stay tuned and see. But again, I'm glad at least we're seeing in one of these cases of the child was found, right? You know, because it's just something we don't normally see. So anyways, that's it. I hope everybody's doing good. I just wanted to kind of go through what I knew about this real quickly and what I've learned about it. I know some people have been emailing me asking me, so that's it. Show some love to her and welcome her back home in the comment section. Thank you for staying here and watching, and until we meet back at the sofa with Roscoe, I'll see you then.